The secret, the secret we never wanted revealed as women is that as women, we have a switch, like a light switch with sex, and it is either off or it is on. And we all know we have this switch and that we have the capacity and the choice to turn it on and off when we want to. And as women, when we were single, we had the switch on for bad boys and we had the switch off for good men until we were ready to settle down and get married and start a family. And so good men can know if you struggled to get women when you were younger and before you were married, or if you're watching and you're single, this will shed some light for you too. If you didn't have a lot of women until you met your wife, it's because she had her switched off. And then when she was ready to settle down, she turned it on and she used the on switch with sex to trap you to get what she wanted, which was to get married. And so when we're ready to get married, our biological clock is ticking. We get a good man and we enjoy sex. We want to have plenty of sex. And then we get what we want. We get married and the sex stops and the sex becomes unimportant. And like I said, it becomes infrequent. And all of a sudden, the amount of sex you were having before you got married begins to dwindle and dwindle and dwindle because it was a trap. It was a trap to get what we wanted. My mentor shared with me what he calls the penny analogy, that if you put a penny in a jar for every time you had sex before you got married, and then you took a penny after you got married, you took a penny out for every time you have sex once you're married, you would never empty the jar. And that's the sad reality of sex with your wife, is that she used sex to get married. And once she trapped you, there was no reason for sex anymore. The sad fact is that a good man, or after a woman marries a good man, all he's good for is being a sperm donor and for financial security and all the facade of being into you, of being passionate about you, of loving you, and can't wait to get together to be with you. That facade drops because we got what we wanted. And for most of us as women, when we become disinterested in sex and we stop having sex, we will hold on enough to string you along. So that's where we'll have sex once a month or twice a month, and we'll string you along for that financial security and or for having children. And that was sadly my experience, that when my husband and I met, sex was great. I had plenty of it. I enjoyed it. He enjoyed it. We had fun together. And then once I knew I had him, the switch turned off. I put walls up. I didn't want to get undressed around him anymore. If he came in and he tried to hug me, I would jerk away. And I had all kinds of stories built up about why I was doing this. I denied to myself the real reasons why, which is what most of us as women do. And there was nothing he was going to be able to do to turn that switch back on. And I didn't withdraw it or withhold it completely, but we would have it maybe every other week. And women listening who are open-minded and want to know these things for yourself, you'll know that we have this mental calendar where it's like, okay, I had it. And then we are like, okay, that'll probably buy me a week or two. And then that time starts running out and we start building this anxiety of when we're going to need to engage with sex again, to give just enough to make it seem okay, and just enough to keep getting what we want. But by that point, our switch is off and the switch never goes back on. And we let our stories and our games begin of why we don't want to have sex anymore. And the sad part is that a good man falls for all those stories and all those excuses of why we don't want to have sex anymore. And I had a myriad of them. And it's fascinating how those stories begin. where in the beginning we're having fun, we enjoy it. It's not an issue in the beginning of the relationship. And then all of a sudden it's, well, it's my past with men before I met you, or it was my relationship with my dad, or I have really low self-esteem and I don't really know what I like. And just all these stories start coming up out of nowhere. And the sad part is, because good men want to believe their wives, they see the good in us, is then they fall for these stories, or the story of, well, I've changed and I need you to meet me in a different place now. I need you to start doing this technique or that technique, or can we read this book together? I've changed and I need it to look, sex to look different now. And good men will fall for that. That's where I went. And I've shared a little bit about that in the last couple of videos, where I had my husband reading all these books with me. We went to couples counseling and I made it this giant ordeal in our relationship. And it was really confusing to him. And he would try to do all the things because he's a good man. And that's what you do. Tell me what to do. I'll do it. So he tried to do the different things that I said that I needed. And you'll see women in comments of some of these videos from other men telling men, here's what you need to do to get your wife to re-engage with sex, and turn your game back on, and you gotta, and all these things. And women will comment on the videos like, yes, I wish my husband knew this. But the truth is, and we all know it, ladies, is that if they do those things, it still doesn't make us happy, and we're still pointing the finger, and you're not doing it right. And well, I didn't mean it like that. And well, no, maybe that's not what I want. And it's just this, it's this total crazy making for good men. And so here's what good men need to know. And then we're going to get into the 5 top reasons why this happens. But the switch is a really, really important foundation to know that switch has gone off. And so what good men need to know is that if your wife's switch is off, there is nothing you can do to turn that switch back on for your wife. I had to own and teach other women to see this is our problem. It's our problem that the switch went off. It's our problem that we've disengaged. Our good man, the man we married, is still the same good man. He didn't change. We got what we wanted. We turned the switch off. So good men, don't be fooled by the bad advice out there that there's something you're doing wrong and that this is your fault. And there's something that you need to be doing differently to turn her switch back on. No, because her switch was on when you met and you were still the same good man. So this is, in a good way, this is your wife's problem to solve. And women, we need to know this is our problem to solve. And in everything I teach and everything I'm teaching today, this isn't to make us wrong and bad as women. It's to look in the mirror and to start to take accountability and responsibility and empower ourselves to change. Because ladies, you need to know, as long as you think it's your husband and he's the problem with sex and he needs to do things differently, you're stuck in victim, and it's never, ever going to change no matter what he does.